Okay, good morning, good afternoon, whatever time it is. Elad Cohen, founder of Tempest Health and Wellness, physical therapist, personal trainer, health coach. Today we're talking about the ankle. So let's get straight into it. How to train your ankle. A lot of people don't really understand how to train their ankle. I have a friend, they have some chronic ankle instability related problems, and I thought I would make this video for them and for other people who want to know how to train their ankle, so that way this question is answered. So how do you train your ankle? First of all, the different areas of training your ankle. Let's talk about what your ankle actually does. Your ankle is your connection to the ground, first and foremost. And in some sports, it may be your connection to the wall if you're a climber or something like that, or you're into parkour. But your ankle is fundamentally a unit of connection to the ground. That's one way to think about it, right? It connects your foot to the floor. So training up your ankle and your foot is a really, really, really good idea. If you're an athlete, if you want to have good balance, if you just want to be healthy, if you want to be able to produce your best outcomes in sport, whatever it is, okay? So we're going to talk about the different areas of ankle training. Before we do that, we need to understand what movements your ankle actually can do. This is my foot, and this is my ankle, okay? So your foot and ankle can do the following things. Plantar flexion, okay, that's gas pedal, right? Dorsiflexion, that's toes to shin. Inversion, which is where I make the underside of my foot face in towards the midline of the body, and eversion like that, okay? Which is where I make it go outwards away from my body, all right? Those are the four movements you need to train. Other than managing load in those four movements, there's also stabilization, right? Which we typically talk about that as balance, but stabilizing is a little bit different from balance. Stabilizing has to do with the joint itself, not your whole body, right? You wouldn't say someone lost their balance completely if their ankle couldn't support their weight and they took a step, but their ankle did lose stability in that case. That's one way of thinking about it. So we're going to be covering that. And then in terms of balance, we'll be talking about the different kinds of balance and stabilization that you can do, and what I would consider a decent progression to start off with if you are new to ankle training. So here we have some foam, much loved. You can get this online for not a whole lot of money. I'm going to be using that to create an unstable surface to work with, okay? You can get that on Amazon for not a whole lot. I've definitely seen it at Goodwill for very little money. Weight, okay? This could be anything. This can be an ottoman. Those can actually be weights. It's up to you. And a slant board. This is a great piece of equipment. I love this piece of equipment. You can get this online for 20, 30 bucks. I've seen people make these themselves. What I really like about this one is it adjusts. How cool is that? It's pretty awesome. You may see these in PT clinics or gyms. I kind of recommend everybody own one. They're sort of like rings for your foot. So with all that being said, let's get right into the training. The first thing we're going to talk about is loading. Now, if your ankle is so weak that you can't load it the way I'm about to load it, in a closed chain, using your body weight, if you need a band and your ankle's that weak, you might want to just see a PT and get straight at it. Something else may be going on. But let's talk about this. So I have a wall here. I've got my slant board. See, I have put that at the sharpest angle that it can handle. There we go. A lot of people will tell you to do plantar flexion, heel raises, on stairs. I actually like the slant board better because the angle makes this way, 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 way harder, right? Some of the force is going back into pushing me this way. So I end up using a lot of force when stabilizing with the wall, and I don't need a set of stairs. I also can't curl my foot over, which is something I see people do when they're doing it on the stairs. So they're not maximizing the amount of stretch that they're gonna get in the fascia at the bottom of the foot. So here you can see I'm doing heel raises, okay? And I can do that one foot. Boom. Those are really, really, really tough on the slant board. You can do what I call a Captain Morgan if you're sort of in the middle, which is like this. So I have some support from this leg and then no support for the other foot. And I push off with the bottom foot like that. There you go. This is not an endorsement of Captain Morgan rum. I don't drink. But you can start with that. What I recommend is 1 foot, other foot, 2 feet. So that would be do this, run out of gas, do this, run out of gas, and then do this, run out of gas, and that's a set. Okay, start off with 1 set to failure, see how you feel, see how you respond. You should be feeling this in your muscles and not your joints. Regular old, good old-fashioned hypertrophy form applies for most of this, so you want to go fast on the way up, slow, 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 and controlled on the way down. Or if your ankle's a little sensitive or something like that, nice and slow the whole way, to make sure that you're not compensating or using something other than the muscles here. So that's plantar flexion, big functional movement. Dorsiflexion. This is where the slant board comes in handy. So my back to the wall, my whole back against the wall, and I am at an angle. So as you can see, my feet are actually lower than the line of my body, and I can bring my feet up like this. This is easier in a spot where you have something to hold on to. Okay, so that way you don't fall forward. Or you can use a stick, like a broomstick. I have this nice PVC tube here. That's my support, so that way I don't go flying forward. Same thing with this one. One foot is really, really tough. I can't actually dorsiflex this one foot without pushing down on the stick a whole bunch. So I have work to do, I guess. But the further out from the wall you go, like this, okay? Now my back is still against the wall and I dorsiflex. The harder this becomes because there's more leverage involved, okay? And you're getting more of a stretched position. Eventually the goal is to do this with your feet way out here. Oh, that's tough. There we go. Nice and slow, nice and slow, nice and slow. The other thing is you can increase the angle on the slant board if you have one. Okay, so for example, if I do this, oh, this is gonna be hard. Balancing with the stick. There we go. Nice and slow, nice and slow, nice and slow. Boom, up. Nice and slow, nice and slow, nice and slow. That trains your tibialis anterior primarily, although there's some other muscles that get involved. And that is dorsiflexion. Now let's talk about inversion and inversion. Same principles apply in terms of angle and distance from the wall. I like to do this with one shoulder against the wall and a foot on the slant board like this. And then I pick up my foot like that. So my foot wants to fall into inversion, and I'm trying to lift the outside edge of my foot just like that. Okay? Lift the outside edge of my foot just like that. Boom, boom, boom. Very nice. Run to failure. Then you move on. Inversion is very similar. So same foot, right leg. Inversion is very similar. I put my shoulder against the wall, and you can see I have my legs crossed. That's just to get my leg out of the way. And then I lift my arch. I lift the inside edge of my foot, and now I'm working on my inversion. I want to fall into eversion like that. Now, let's say you don't have a slant board. No slant board. Boom. I don't have a slant board. Can I still do these exercises? Absolutely. One of the easiest ways to set this up, if I put my hands against the wall like this, and then stretch my calves way back in sort of a plank Superman position, boom, plantar flexion. Okay, so that's plantar flexion. If it's uncomfortable for you to be on your hands because you have a wrist injury or something like that, you can do it like this, with your elbows. Same thing, I am pushing against the wall is pushing against me, generates a lot of force and a lot of stretch. Try to get your hip as close to the ground as you can, as far forward as you can. Big, 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 big stretch, boom. Very nice. Dorsiflexion, back to the wall, tib raise, just like that. Obviously, it's gonna feel easier than if I had the slant board, so I may be able to get my feet further out, and I can load my tibialis that way. And I can also do the same thing for inversion and for eversion. So that's all loaded, okay? And a lot of tasks we do with our ankle are closed chain. So I try to train my ankle as much as possible in a position that mimics real life, basically. And so that's gonna be more closed chain than open chain. So I'm moving myself, I'm not moving an external object. So that's loading, taken care of. Let's talk about balance. The fundamental principle of balance training is always about keeping your body center of mass, which for me is, right around here, over your base of support, which is your feet, okay? So wider base of support is easier, wider base of support is easier. If your balance is really terrible, this is a great place to start, as this box stands. If your balance is really good, you're gonna start narrow, and then you can do one foot with a toe off like this, and then just the barest amount of help from the other foot. And this really closely simulates a single leg stance with just a little bit of a margin of safety because I have my other foot on the ground. And then I can pick my foot up off the ground, and that's base of support, okay? It does get even harder than that, by the way. People sometimes think if they're doing balance training at home that all they can do is one foot base of support, that's it. That's the hardest thing you can do, and that's actually not true. So you can try plantar flexing a little bit, right? You do a little bit of a heel raise, you keep your heels off the ground, and then you walk through the same progression. I put my feet together. This is already a little wobbly. balancing is kind of hard. I just get my heel off the ground, and all of a sudden this is a really serious challenge because I made my base of support the size of the ball of my foot and my toes. So you can see my heel's just off the ground. That's just changing the base of support. The other thing about it is that that's all stability for this joint. But in addition, we want to see how that contributes to balance. There are 3 systems we use to balance, and I've made a video about this in the past. Your eyes, your inner ear, and then your proprioception, which is like your joint sense. It's your ability to, you notice I can touch my nose from anywhere I have my eyes shut. It's your ability to track where your joints are in space in your brain, okay? So when you're doing your training for your ankle, I always recommend taking out one of those 3 components. You might try 2 out of 3, but for most people that's going to be really, really challenging in the beginning. So an example would be using foam or just some folded up towels, a pillow, whatever you've got. Put that down on the ground, and then you can try training your balance with less proprioceptive input. Okay? So I'm not getting as much feedback because of this foam that I'm using. Okay, so that's one. The other is close your eyes. So if I try to do this and shut my eyes, man, that's hard. Ooh, that's challenging. You can also just do that straight away. So you find some position that's mildly challenging, let's say here, and close your eyes. So now my eyes are shut. I don't know if you guys can see that from the camera angle, but that's another way to challenge your balance. And the last is vestibular. So what you're going to do is move your head around a little bit while you're doing what you're doing. And I am here, and you can see I'm balancing on one foot. Let me do the other foot. I'm balancing on one foot, and then I can start tilting my head. And if you've never done this, this will probably feel extremely challenging even if your eyes are fixed on something. Or you've done some kind of sport which involves a lot of balance. Okay, I can rotate my head around like this. Whoop, that's challenging. Okay, you can of course combine taking away your vision, your vestibular sense, and your proprioception, but I recommend starting with one at a time. That's all balance and stability training, and you can do this in a really, really big wide variety of positions. I always see people train their balance just upright, but the reality is that sport's not like that and life isn't like that. So for example, bent knees. So what if I'm like this? Oh, there we go. Okay, same thing. So change your body position, not just your base of support. You can try balancing lean back. Make it fun. You know, balance doesn't have to be boring. A lot of people don't train their balance because it's dull. And that brings us to our next point, which is what we call in physical therapy neurocognitive tasks or dual tasking. This is a ball, okay? Really fun to play with a partner, by the way, what I'm about to do. But the idea is occupying some kind of balance challenge position. So let's say for my left foot, right, I've got my heel just off the ground, and then I'm throwing the ball and catching it, and I'm keeping my heel off the ground. So I have to focus on the ball, not on my balance. The reason this is important, oh, dropped it, is because in real life, we don't think about balancing much. We can't focus on it. We're usually doing something else, and that's when we lose our balance. This does 2 things. One, it gets us closer to actual sports, right? Actual sports, actual real life tasks. It's a lot harder. It's a lot of fun. I really, really love playing catch with people in some kind of narrow base of support as training for myself, as training for other people. So play around with those things. The balance and stability stuff doesn't really have a to failure dosage. It's more like when you feel like you're getting bored, that's usually a sign that the training session is either done or you need to progress it. That's a good one. And the other thing I really recommend with that one, train it often. It's not fatiguing. You can do it on off days from training without, any really serious deficits. So that's all a lot of fun. And the last thing we're going to talk about before we get into actual functional training, like sports, whatever your sport is. And then we're going to talk about loading, okay? Whole body loading or lower limb loading. So other than balance, stability, and sort of directly loading the ankle, we also want to load the ankle indirectly in various functional capacities. So just as an example, is a squat loading my ankle, right? If I go like this, am I loading my ankle? Yes, I am. Okay, totally fine. Can I add weight to that? Anybody who says they don't have money for a home gym, I got these from Goodwill for like no money. Okay, so can I add weight to that? Yes, I can. Can I make the weight higher up so there's more of a stability component? Yes, I can. Can I even do it overhead? Yes, I can. Okay? All of those add challenge to your ankle. Now you might be saying, wait a minute, I don't have the mobility for that. My ankle doesn't flex far enough for me to actually squat to the ground. That's why you load your ankle, right? That plantar flexion drill that we did, either hands against the wall or with the slant board, will help you with the mobility, okay? Working on resistance training through a full range of motion is a great way to get your mobility up. So you've got weights, and you can also do that in different positions. So for example, I like to sprint. So one of the positions you end up in when you sprint is you taking off on one foot, you're gonna land with the other foot. I run in barefoot shoes, so I don't really sprint with my heel hitting the ground. It's more like this. So train that position on your working leg. I've got my heel off the ground, and I wanna make sure I actually have a surplus of range of motion that I can handle this. And I may even load that too, right? So I can add some weight. Boom, big deep push, there we go. Okay, so that way when I land and I'm sprinting, it feels easy because I've done something that's a lot more demanding. So I go like that, big loaded move. I don't know if you can see this, but I actually have my heel off the ground. So I'm being forced to stabilize using all of my different plantar flexor muscles. And you can turn those, once you're comfortable, into plyometrics. So for example, if I'm here, I'm gonna put one foot forward, drop, push off. Drop, push off. Drop, push off. Boom. Okay, that stuff is usually a little more demanding for people. Woo, a little breathy. And that is getting closer and closer to mimicking our sport in question. And you can get pretty serious about it. I see people talking about how it's safer to squat flat-footed. It is, in the sense that you can carry more weight. But doing your squats with your heels off the ground like that will really teach you to stabilize in a position. This will teach you to stabilize in a position that is very functional for landing. So I do some parkour training, and you land like this quite a bit. And I want to have more strength and balance than I actually need for my sport. So that's pretty much it, guys. No amount of training in the gym is a substitute for the actual sport itself. Let's say you play basketball, you have to actually go play basketball at some point. Now, if you're coming back from an ankle thing or whatever it is, you probably want to start off where you're new to the sport, one-on-one, as opposed to big teams, right? And you might want to start off, let's say, sort of casually playing as opposed to really harsh, like competitive atmosphere. So like keep it kind of chill, don't add music or anything like that. The more factors you add in, the harder it's going to be for you to keep stability. I also always recommend that people who are playing a court sport formally, if they have a history of ankle injury especially, wear some kind of lace-up brace. The evidence really does indicate that. Loading, plantar flexion, dorsiflexion, inversion, eversion, balance, deficit training with balance. So we take away one of the three components of the balance system. Dual tasking, neurocognitive training, some kind of loaded functional task, and then a regressed version of your sport, a moderate version of your sport, and then a competitive version of your sport. I hope that clarified for anyone involved more or less what to do if they're new to ankle training. If you have any questions, please put them down in the comments below. If any of this was useful, please smash that like button, as the kids say. And yeah, if you need a physical therapist in the Denver, especially the Park Hill area, I'm your guy. I do in-home services. See you next time.